Przed Państwem Simon Cartwright.
Good morning. Slightly smaller audience than for Jeremy's presentation earlier, but thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. Thank you. And I'm going to try and make security sound interesting, or as interesting as the previous topic that Jeremy discussed. I work for a company called Arbor Networks. I run consultancy services for them, and I've been working very closely with Netia and our partner NCR to address part of the security marketplace that is sometimes overlooked. The security marketplace itself is predicated pretty much on three main sectors, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And today I want to talk about the availability aspect. Some of the things that Jeremy spoke of earlier with regards to communication and the internet generally, all involves connectivity. And if we lose connectivity, one particular aspect of the security problem that exists today is around availability. And that's something I want to talk about today. I'm going to show a small video for the first part of the presentation, just to give you a flavor for the internet itself and how we've evolved over the last 10 years. So that's quite a dramatic music to give you an idea of what's happened in the industry over the last 10 years. I've been involved in this particular part of security for some time now, for about 10 years myself. We've seen the change in the threat landscape over the last 10 years evolve quite substantially. And one of the biggest threats that exist in the market today for organizations such as yourselves in the audience today is around availability and the threat against your availability being suspended by an attack from somewhere in the world. Today I wanted to give you a bit of an indication about who I am and a little bit about Arbor Networks, which is the company that I'm representing today. And to give you an idea about the DDoS evolution of the marketplace and some of the attack details and how things have changed somewhat over the last few years. We are quite limited on time today. I've got about 15 minutes left, you'll be pleased to know. So I'll be quite brief with the couple of the introduction slides. Arbor, as I say, who I represent today, we historically trade and deal with the carrier marketplace, so the carriers of the world that exist today. And we have a pretty healthy market share within the carrier sector, where we have about 90% market share. This is a very nice market position for us to have, but one of the things that gives us is the ability to understand about the threat that exists within the internet as a whole, because we get fed anonymized information from various different sources from our carrier customers globally. We see on average around 45, 47 terabits a second, which is a huge amount of volume, a huge amount of traffic that we see generally from the internet. Roughly about 25 to 30% of all internet traffic we get visibility of. Now that holds us in a good position, because that enables us to understand not only about the threat that exists today, but where that threat is coming from. It is so simple and easy to launch attacks on organizations. You can download tools off the internet pretty easily today for not much money at all. And in fact, if you're brave enough to try and buy some stolen credit card details or something like that, you can download some tools for free that will give you the ability to be able to attack any organization. That's why we've seen this problem escalate and now be more pertinent towards the enterprise market. Historically, it used to be a carrier-based problem, and the carriers used to understand the threat that existed, but it was very much based towards volume attacks against their networks. Things have changed somewhat over the last few years. I'll skip the next Arbor slide. I think it's important to note that the actual threat landscape has changed, and the video, what I first played, demonstrated the fact that over the last 10 years, not only has the threat landscape changed, but the type of attacks that we see in the marketplace have changed as well. Not only because it's becoming easier to download tools to enable people to attack organizations, but the threat landscape's changed itself. So back towards the late 90s, early 2000s, it was more of a network sort of based attack that we saw in the marketplace then, and you'll probably remember some people that are involved in security, things like Code Red and Slammer and that sort of stuff. That was very much early 2000s. And then we saw the content part of the networking be a problem for most organizations, and we saw more and more attacks on the web browser and applications like Java being attacked more and more frequently. What we've now seen from about the last 18 months, 2 years, is that a more advanced threat come into the market. Not only because the tool sets have changed to enable people to attack organizations more easily, but it's something which the advanced threats are a lot more difficult to pick up and detect for organizations. I think listening back to the presentation beforehand from Jeremy, most of the things that he said were more pertinent towards internet connectivity, and without that internet connectivity, it can cause catastrophic implications for organizations in whatever sector. I think it's important just to demonstrate very quickly what a DDoS attack is. I think most of you maybe have heard of the term DDoS, and actually in its true term, it is distributed denial of service. But the way that would work is that infected PCs throughout the world can make illegitimate requests to a particular website or a particular application. And what this tends to do on this distributed sort of nature is to cause problems with availability and bandwidth that's being delivered to organizations. So that exhausts the ability for your legitimate customers to be able to get access to your critical infrastructure, to be able to, maybe whether it's in banking, whether it's looking at the financial services sector. There's more and more mobile devices in the marketplace today that are getting internet connectivity and smart PDAs and that sort of stuff. The growth in that particular marketplace has made this more difficult for everyone to appreciate the size of the problem that exists. As I mentioned very briefly earlier, the different sort of attack tools that are available in the marketplace today, and this is a scary figure for me. I think we've all seen anonymous and how active they've been in the marketplace over the last few years, the tool of choice for attack that Anonymous use is a tool called LOIC, which is, I won't go into the details of the attack tool itself, but it was downloaded for free on the internet during 2012 over 1 million times. Now this leverages different assets globally to be able to leverage and attack various different organizations. As I say, it's very, very simple and easy to launch attacks on organizations. Now, what drives people to get attacked? And I think there are a number of things that drive people. It can be a disgruntled employee. DDoS attacks, when they first started in the market, which was around about the 2000, around 2000, 2001, was very much predicated on one particular industry sector, and that sector was gambling and gaming. And if I was a gambling company and you were a gambling company, I could potentially download and launch an attack against your company so that your customers, online customers, would come to my site to trade. This is how it started in the early 2000s, but it's become a lot more mainstream over the last few years. And I think that, again, that's to do with the ease of the attacks that are available and the tools that you can download. But online gaming is still a big proportion of the marketplace today, but we're seeing other sectors being attacked as well. And most organizations see, I think everybody's aware of the problem about availability, and I think there are various different sectors now that are becoming more prevalent and more targeted with DDoS attacks. I'm going to talk about the US banking sector very quickly. The US banking sector last year had some unwanted attention from various different groups, and there's an attack called the Arbor attacks, which occurred in the US banking sector last year. Now, most of the organizations that we all contemplate as being big global banks within the US marketplace that have huge amounts of resource, hundreds and sometimes thousands of people to secure their networks, were still found wanting when it came to protecting themselves against this type of threat. And household names, and this is well publicized, organizations like JP Chase and Citigroup, PNC, Wells Fargo, Capital One, which was mentioned earlier with Jeremy's presentation, all suffered some sort of compromise last year by these attacks which were prevalent in the US banking sector. And everybody, as I said, is becoming a target. It's not just particularly banking, it's government, it's any retail clients. It's a problem that it's pretty indiscriminate in where the attacks go. The costs associated aren't just necessarily the hard costs that we all imagine about losing availability. I think in the first instance, if you think about losing availability and you're an online retailer or you generate income from some sort of applications that you run online, if you lose connectivity, you will lose revenue. It's as simple as that. But it's not just, and the figure that we have to think about is in terms of how important your connectivity is to the organizations today. And it's becoming more and more of a problem, and it's becoming more and more of a threat. The soft costs associated with the attacks that we see in the marketplace today these aren't just the things that the things that are easy to understand how much money you would lose. These are the things that, like, if you lose connectivity, what are your internal processes and internal costs associated? How much extra activity is there going to be on your help desk? Are there going to be lost output for employees? Not only the lost business that you would receive as well, and also the reputation and the brand damage that can be caused by losing connectivity, especially during sensitive times of availability. The attacks are becoming more frequent. I'm going to put up a couple of numbers just to give you an indication about the Polish marketplace. Some countries we see a lot more activity. The Polish marketplace today, we don't see too much activity compared to some countries that you'd probably be surprised at. We're seeing a lot of activity these days from the African nations. We've seen attacks in the French marketplace, up to about 5,000 or 6,000 attacks we've seen this year within the French market. And if we think about looking at the Polish market, so far we've seen this year, because we get anonymized and we see so much traffic within the internet, we get fed this information from our carrier base. We've seen about 1,000 attacks within Poland this year. The important things around the attack traffic isn't necessarily just about the size of the attack that's causing problems to organizations. Link size for your businesses range from 10 meg, 20 meg, 50 meg, 100 meg, 500 meg, gig. We're seeing the market move towards higher capacity and higher throughput in terms of transit capacity. But the attacks that we see are growing quite substantially as well. And I think from the video earlier on, it showed you that the industry has changed from 2005. The biggest attack that the market saw was around 10 gig. In 2010, it was 100 gig. And earlier this year, we saw an attack which was 350 gig. Now, that is a huge amount of bandwidth for any organization to try and cope with. Currently within the marketplace here, the attacks that we've profiled within Poland this year have been just over 2 gig in terms of size. And the average length of the attack, they're becoming more frequent, but they're becoming more punchy, more short. Historically, over the last few years, we've seen a change in this marketplace because they used to be longer attacks. The attacks used to last for a longer period of time. We're now seeing shorter, sharper, and more aggressive attacks. With maybe bigger bandwidth being utilised, but for a shorter period of time. And that can cripple an organisation, and the time it takes to recover from the attack is the thing that we need to be worried about. There are a next generation of threats that exist in the marketplace today, and we've taken steps to work with Netia and NCR here in Poland to be able to create not only capability within this marketplace, but also to put a plan together for a phased approach to next generation of protection. It's important to note that DDoS attacks, when you get an attack in a particular country, a lot of organizations don't like the thought of traffic being transferred to another location to be cleansed, because it's like a big washing machine that would sit somewhere else within the cloud marketplace. And to transfer that traffic to another location can be quite daunting for a lot of organizations, not only from a latency perspective, but a lot of government organizations. I was in Asia Pacific last week, and working with the government in one of the countries there, it's important to keep your traffic within your country. There are some laws and legislations that have been passed in various different countries from the US, if you think about the Patriot Act in the US, that specifies that, information shouldn't be traversing geographical boundaries. And I think it's important to note that we've got capability now with what we've put together in Poland to be able to mitigate attacks that are in this marketplace. I've got a very short video, which is probably going to take me up to near my time, which I'm going to play very quickly.
What would you do if you could see everything? If you could watch internet traffic as it flows through the pipes of the world's internet service providers? How could you leverage that intelligence to protect your network? Arbor Network Solutions sit in the vast majority of the world's internet service provider networks globally. Arbor has leveraged those customer relationships and its unique service provider footprint to create a globally scoped threat monitoring system. Arbor's Active Threat Level Analysis System, or ATLAS, provides internet-wide visibility into the threat landscape. With this unique vantage point, Arbor is ideally positioned to deliver intelligence about botnets, malware, and DDoS attacks that threaten internet infrastructure and services. Continuously monitoring up to 38 terabytes per second of internet traffic, ATLAS is more than just visibility. ATLAS data is aggregated and turned into actionable intelligence by Arbor Network Security Engineering and Response Team. Attack mitigations are delivered to Arbor Solutions, automating protection in real time and adding an extra layer of security protection. Global threat intelligence directly to you to help you defend and protect your network and data centers. After all, you can't defend against what you cannot see. For a glimpse into the ATLAS dataset, visit...
Right, well, I'll skip that quite quickly. I've got about a minute left so far, so I'm going to be very brief with the last slide. What we've been, it's quite important to note that the visibility aspect for any organisation to understand about where traffic's coming from is hugely important, because we're seeing different countries, we're seeing nation-state attacks now. It's not just the traditional methods of attack that we've seen over the last few years. And it's really important for us to understand and get some visibility of the traffic globally so that we can take proactive steps to be able to protect the organisations that wish to be protected. I've been involved in this particular security threat for about 10 years now, and I'm very passionate about the ability of organisations to be able to protect themselves, no matter what size. A lot of the larger enterprise organisations can afford to buy lots and lots of different sorts of hardware that profess to have some sort of coverage and capability when it comes to this new threat. But the traditional methods and the traditional bits of hardware that we all know, things like firewalls and IPS and those sort of stuff, aren't necessarily the best devices and the best things and the best way to protect yourselves against the threat that exists. So what we've done, we work very closely with Netia in Poland to be able to provide some in-country capability and some capability for protecting not only small organisations but large organisations with big bandwidth too. I'm now pretty much out of time. If you'd like to ask any questions regarding DDoS, the threat, or security generally, I'll be on the NCR booth for the rest of the day today, so I'll welcome any questions if you have any at the NCR booth later. But thank you.